Moses Eugene Malone might be the most underrated player in all of NBA history. 3 regular season MVPs, 1 league championship with finals MVP, and 8 All-NBA teams, yet the chairman of the boards is regularly overlooked in the greatest big man, or heck, even greatest player of all time conversations. Before you call me crazy, the other players to win 3 NBA MVPs and a title: Michael, LeBron, Larry, Magic, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, and Kareem. 7 of the 10 popularly accepted top 10 greatest basketball players of all time. Back to the greatest center debate, because it's quite a fun one. It might be the most competitive position out of the 5, with a number of players who have a real argument for the number 1 spot. I think we've all found ourselves dragging out a passionate argument with someone online over who we believe is the greatest center of all time. Whether it's Shaq, Wilt, Kareem, Hakeem, Russell, the answer varies the most at the center position. Over the last 5 years across NBA Twitter and YouTube commentary, the name I've heard called the greatest center of all time the most frequently is Kareem. And it makes sense. All of his personal accolades, his longevity, and most famously, his record, 38,387 points. 6 championships, 6 MVPs, but in a day and age where fans argue LeBron lost to Dirk in 2011, so LeBron can't be GOAT, and nitpick each individual following season and outcome, we should keep that same energy when discussing every legend across the history of the NBA. And using this same energy, I leave you with this. Moses Malone outplayed and defeated the consensus greatest center of all time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the legendary Showtime Lakers twice in the playoffs. Once while Moses led the underdog 1981 Rockets to a 3-game best-of-5 series victory, and the other being Moses' famous faux 5-0 1983 76ers. A series the Sixers won in a convincing sweep after acquiring Malone the offseason beforehand. A sweep of the 80s Lakers, one of the great dynasties in all of sports. When Moses finally won his only championship in '83, he fulfilled his prophecy to take Philadelphia to the promised land and cement himself as the most dominant force in the loaded NBA. The media called the championship an inevitable outcome when the Sixers acquired Moses, a reaction similar to Kevin Durant famously joining the 73-9 Warriors. The world understood the magnitude of a talent like Moses joining the already championship-ready Sixers, and the team delivered, a record of 65-17 and an all-time NBA playoff win-loss record of 12-1, a record held until Shaq and Kobe broke it in 2001. A trip directly to the promised land. But after the famous Magic-Bird rivalry and the arrival of Michael Jordan boosted the rest of the 80s era in the league, the legacy Mo created became underappreciated and has largely remained overlooked since. One more obvious reason Moses' legacy has faded away amongst today's fans is the lack of digital footage of his career available, especially in his Rocket years, where we can look at his box stats and marvel at them, things like 30 points per game, but not quite watch what he could do on a court and simply dismiss it. As we noted with Wilt Chamberlain, fans that can't give a view, an eyeball test to a player's career quickly dismiss the player without fully analyzing how they impacted the game, especially when said fan did not grow up watching or admiring that player. Then, these fans take to social media with a know-it-all mentality and place the player they grew up admiring at the top of their personal totem pole. And then comes the statements such as Wilt Chamberlain is a glorified Andre Drummond. Many fans who can see only the stats of a player look straight to their championships, and with Moses having just 1 title in an era before the NBA rose to pop culture prominence, Moses' near flawless on-court ability as a center has become disregarded. Even his '83 Sixers, a team which belongs in the upper echelon of championship seasons during a day and age of individual ring judgment, has become one of the underrated teams of all time. The great YouTuber and archiver 70s fan managed to release a highlight video of Moses well over an hour long, and I finally got to give one of my favorite players of all time a more deeply detailed eyeball test, to see his entire available skill set and if it can answer the near impossible question of whether his game would translate to the NBA today or not, and most importantly, where he truly ranks amongst the ultra elite pool of all-time NBA centers. The highlights contain footage from his Rockets and 76ers tenure, what many call the prime of his career. It's a bit impractical to give concrete answers based off an hour of highlights, but it was certainly fascinating to watch a player I've only heard biased hometown stories about take many reps in his prime in front of my own eyes. However, Malone had several more productive years. In his younger years in the ABA, where the quicker and lean Moses notably became the first high school to pro basketball star, and also in the teams that followed his Sixers tenure, like the Bullets and Atlanta Hawks. Moses was famous for being one of the most relentless rebounders in league history. He set the record for offensive rebounds and led the league in total rebounds for 6 out of 7 straight seasons, while becoming one of the premier physical, intimidating enforcers in arguably the most physical era in league history. Mo was so quick off of his feet and to the ball. He had the unteachable it factor of hustle and ran the court end to end like only the greatest rebounders in history have. However, his game goes much beyond what he was known for the most, and that's what I've loved the most from these highlights. Moses was in phenomenal modern big man shape during his Houston run. He did everything the great modern rim runner does. Quick off the feet, always right at the rim, non-stop energy. During his 1978-79 campaign, he began gaining size and eventually developed a sweet mid-range jumper to go along his plethora of dominant deep post moves and spectacular footwork. He had a quick, clean release with great arc and was a 76% free throw shooter for his career. His face-up and mid-range ability became one of his biggest strengths as he improved year by year. He utilized a strong fadeaway jumper, but scored most of his points with deep post positioning right below the bucket. His remarkable quickness for his 6'9", 6'10" frame also made him an effective transition player to run alongside Houston star guard Calvin Murphy and eventually make a run past the Lakers to the 1981 finals, falling to the favorite Celtics. By this stage, he always demanded attention from the entire team's defense, as he showed little flaws offensively and would never take a possession off. Moses' Rocket coach, Del Harris, said of him, "His incentive is team-oriented and win-oriented, a key element which showed alongside his underdog finals appearance that he played a brand of basketball that produced winning at the highest level, even until he formed his super team in Philly and fulfilled his true basketball destiny." Moses joined a Sixers team that put tons of historic talent around his. He teamed with fellow MVP Julius Erving, Maurice Cheeks, Andrew Toney, and Bobby Jones to form a squad that would end up one of the great all-time teams. The highlights demonstrate examples of the beautiful sets this team ran in the half court, and even some Jokic-esque passes Moses made in the half court or transition that would never be mentioned on broadcasts today, already calling Nicolo the best passing big of all time. Despite these passing highlights, Moses' biggest career flaw was considered to be his passing and decision making. He never averaged even 2 assists a game for a season in his career. The highlights demonstrate he was at least capable of making some of the passes that ooh and ah these aforementioned Jokic praisers. I'd personally like to see Moses with 4 3-point shooters surrounding him instead of mostly defensive players, but I'd also like to keep this entirely not a what if video. Full court outlets, one-handed looks, two-man game, pick and roll game. These highlights show a lot of pure passing ability from the big man that could have been further developed in the modern day. But sometimes they're called highlights for a reason. When a Rockets coach said Moses should improve his passing, he replied, "They ain't paying me to pass." When you have the face-up touch that Moses and few in league history have had, making the read out of a double team becomes a much different ballgame. I'll have to watch some full games before making a definite stance on Moses' passing ability, but I don't think his lack of assists per game mean he would not translate to the court today. These clips showed me that he had the natural talent to pass the ball on target, even while on the move. Today you have players averaging 5 or 6 turnovers a game. You tell me what you think of his passing potential. I don't even know if I can make an assessment with only a few passing highlights compared to his career marks in passing. To me, that's what the eyeball test is all about. Defensively, Moses' quick vertical was his biggest strength. Despite being slightly shorter, he had the ability to protect the rim, which is something not every effective center even does today. It has become a less important factor today because the game has expanded further to the perimeter. With Moses' size, especially in his younger seasons and quickness, I believe he could be an ideal hybrid lineup center today, meaning he could play on a small ball or normal size lineup. He was a better athlete for nearly a decade than he gets credit for. And when the NBA became very physical, Moses adapted by changing his own physique and becoming the alpha big. I think he could and would adapt to the position today. He was not slow enough to get fizzled out of the league because of pick and roll defense, and he had the never say die, physical, hustle, and attack the ball style which makes players' careers today. Imagine the current Brooklyn Nets featuring a board man like Moses, or even the current Lakers. This was a humble high school kid who grew into the most intimidating figure in the league on both ends of the floor. He once famously held Larry Bird back with rookie Charles Barkley while Dr. J teed off on Bird during a regular season brawl. He'd rise to over 250 pounds of brute force to accommodate his dominant post-play scoring package. The Sixers would eventually break up their contending team despite adding Barkley, and Moses played his final years on mostly non-playoff teams. He finished his career with the most NBA offensive rebounds in a career, season, and individual game. He's one of 3 all-time players with 28,000 points and 17,000 rebounds. He's one of the best pure energy guys in history, with all-time great post and face-up skill on top of it. Despite his marvelous playing career, Malone is rarely highlighted in NBA game opening signatures, talk shows, fan debates, or other related media. One man who commonly airs praise for Moses is another man who's become arguably underrated as a player, and that's Charles Barkley. Barkley has commended Moses for helping him get into game shape as a rookie and later develop into an MVP caliber legend who always attacked the glass. Another legend to praise Moses is Hakeem Olajuwon, the man many call the best center of all time, who said Moses had a huge impact on his career and life. Moses mentored Hakeem while Hakeem played for the University of Houston and Moses played for the Rockets. Moses' Houston departure paved the way for the Rockets to eventually land Hakeem, their franchise's all-time greatest player. For a player the caliber of Hakeem to give that praise to Moses tells you all you need to know about the legacy this man has absolutely deserved. Even the 76ers organization couldn't give him the praise he deserved until it was too late. The Sixers quietly stopped using the number 2 in the organization since Moses' retirement in the 90s, but didn't organize his official jersey retirement ceremony until right after he passed away. Moses had a night of celebration at the Wells Fargo Center months after his passing, but it was outshined by the night belonging to Kobe Bryant, who played his final game in his hometown that night in 2015. After negative PR surrounded Moses' family when his son sued James Harden for orchestrating a robbery and attack on him, the jersey retirement was quietly held off for almost 4 years until number 2 finally went up into the rafters in early 2019. Not long before he passed, Moses was interviewed at a Rockets-Sixers game, and when asked how he'd fare in the game that day, he stated, quote, "I'm a 20-20 kind of guy." And I don't know if he's wrong here. In the current state of pacing and spacing, scoring and shooting, I think Moses would be absolutely dominant. He'd beat you to any rebound, he has the shooting touch and range, he has the ability to make outlet passes, beat you off the dribble, and has Olajuwon-inspiring post footwork. Right now, he'd be in play for MVP just like he was in the 70s and 80s. Moses has remained an underrated top 20 all-time player. His accolades and the fashion in which he acquired them makes him, in my opinion, the most underrated player in NBA history, regardless of position. Let me know who's the most underrated to you. He may be featured on this channel next. After this brief eyeball test, do you think Moses would translate into today's game? If so, where does he land on the NBA's power ladder? Who is his present-day equivalent? Factor in the skill set Moses already utilized, but with the current state of modern basketball training, evolution, and medication. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this commentary, please leave a rating on the video. More content on underappreciated NBA greats is on the way. Thank you to 70s Fan and all great footage archivers working to deliver this terrific content. This has been VP102. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Nice text message going off there. What the probably went off twice actually. Yeah, thank you for subscribing. Holy crap. Over 102 videos. What? Thank you.